Got to have the emergency water in the hurricane.
Starbucks cups.
Yeah, this was tomatoes.
Okay.
Americans use a staggering amount of plastic, yet less than 10% is recycled.
I know I can recycle my laundry bottles, water bottles, but what about plastic bags? What about plastic straws? What about these single-use items?
One company claims to have a solution to the plastic problem that it says can become a model for the nation.
Numbers 1 through 7 and the unmarked plastics, we can take them all.
So that's basically all plastic.
That's true.
But critics say the program is wishful thinking at best.
The only thing that's new here is industry trying to put a new spin on the old recycling myth and convince people that we can recycle plastics when we really can't.
CBS Reports and Inside Climate News look into whether the claims of this new plastic waste program sound too good to be true.
Is this just your industry trying to make consumers believe that plastic is recyclable so they'll keep buying more plastic?
Advanced recycling is real. It's happening. We're doing it.
So we're gonna have storage for the incoming plastics on one side, all of our processing equipment here in the middle, and then storage for all the stuff that we create on the back side, our pellets.
So all the plastic will come in here.
Yep.
And you'll also process it here.
Yes, that's correct.
Ryan Tebbets is in charge of project management at Cyclix, a company funded in part by ExxonMobil, to sort, clean, and process plastic waste for what they say is a groundbreaking plastics recycling program they're piloting in Houston, Texas.
So one of the limitations right now that people know about with recycling plastics is that they can only use things like number 1 or number 2 plastics. Through our innovation, our technology, we can take single-use plastics like this and use it within this facility to turn it back into a recyclable material.
So historically, that kind of thing ends up in a landfill, even if somebody puts it in their blue bin.
Exactly.
But you're saying you can actually recycle that.
Numbers 1 through 7 and the unmarked plastics, we can take them all.
So that's basically all plastic.
That's true.
Less than 10% of all plastic waste gets recycled nationwide, part of a global crisis. By 2050, it's estimated that the world's oceans will contain more plastic by weight than fish. But in January 2022, the city of Houston, Texas, announced a revolutionary initiative with Exxon, Cyclix, and others to collect and recycle up to 90% of all plastic waste, dirty or clean, turning it into new products.
What we're going to create are different types of pellets that will be sold to our off-takers. And they look a lot like this. Circular in nature, you can actually see the different color variations. Those are all the different types of plastics.
So how have you kind of cracked the code? What is the holy grail solution here that you figured out how you can do basically any plastic?
We have a sophisticated lab up in New Hampshire where we can take in source plastics and analyze them on a material and chemical level. And from there, we can understand its recyclability options to then customize that plastic into whatever our off-taker or customers need on the backside. And we can do it at scale.
Why is it so hard to recycle most plastic?
Plastics weren't designed to be recycled. They contain a lot of additives, chemicals that can make it hard to recycle.
Veena Singla is a leading expert on the impact of plastic waste on health and the environment.
If you think about your plastic water bottle, that's a type of plastic called PET. Now there's another very similar type of plastic called PETG. So it just has some different chemical modifications. Those two can't be recycled together, and they're really hard to separate. They look really similar, and when they go into sorting facilities, they may be sorted together. So there's an example right there of how it's so challenging to recycle plastics, and that the systems weren't really designed to do it well.
I want to do a little bit of background on the Houston Recycling Collaboration. Kind of where did this idea come from? How did this all start?
Our current recycling program, there's no doubt it has its own challenges, right? It's undersized, it's underfunded.
Mark Wilfock was appointed as Houston's head of solid waste management in 2021, 3 months before the city's new recycling program with Exxon was announced.
Was this something that the city approached Exxon or other partners about, or did they approach you?
Yeah, so it was probably mutual. Let's face it, in this industry that you're in, the question that we get challenged with the most is, hey, I know I can do this with bottles. I know I can recycle my laundry bottles, my milk bottles, water bottles. But what about plastic bags? What about plastic straws? What about these single-use items? Do we have to place them in the landfill? And I've been in the business over 30 years, and there's never been an answer for that.
It seems like a big promise to say that you could do 90% of plastic when, as you just said, no one's really ever been able to do that before.
Right.
How did they convince you that this is possible?
Just some of the advancements in technology that we have today. And by partnering up with our chemical engineers and whatnot, I believe they have an approach, or they have an opportunity to do something that doesn't exist.
Plastic is made from oil, a fossil fuel. Exxon is one of the biggest oil and plastic producers on the planet. And according to the Minderoo Foundation, the company is the largest contributor to single-use plastic waste. The plastics industry has been promoting the promise of significantly increasing the recycling rate of plastic waste with a technology they call advanced recycling, spending $30 million alone on one recent ad campaign.
Imagine a future where plastic is not wasted, but instead remade over and over into the things that keep our food fresher, our families safer, and our planet cleaner. To help us get there, America's plastic makers are investing billions of dollars to create innovative products and new recycling technologies for sustainable change. Because when you push for smarter solutions, big things can happen.
What exactly is advanced recycling?
So advanced recycling is the plastics industry term for a set of technologies that have mostly been around for a long time. People have also used the term chemical recycling for this set of technologies. But what they all have in common is that they're using high heat or high pressure or chemicals or a combination of all three of those things to break down plastic into its chemical components.
Most plastics are recycled through a process called mechanical recycling, where plastic waste is sorted, shredded, cleaned, and combined with other raw materials to produce a partially recycled product. Only select types of plastic can be recycled this way, and in most cases, the process can't be repeated. Advanced or chemical recycling uses heat and/or chemicals to essentially break the material back down to its chemical components, which the petrochemical industry says allows for the production of brand new products that can continuously be recycled in this way. But critics like Veena Singla say the plastics industry hasn't been able to use it to impact the plastic waste problem.
And is the issue here largely scale? I mean, it sounds like it's technically possible to chemically recycle plastic.
They have not been able to scale chemical recycling processes to a commercial level to be able to use actual post-consumer waste inputs.
How long has advanced recycling been around?
It's been around for many decades. The only thing that's new here is industry trying to put a new spin on the old recycling myth and convince people that we can recycle plastics when we really can.
Got to have the emergency water in the hurricane.
Starbucks cups?
Yeah, this was tomatoes.
Okay.
Brandy Deason is part of a local environmental group in Houston. She was skeptical that the new program would actually recycle plastic normally rejected by curbside programs. So when she bags up her recycling, she tosses something else in, a tracking device.
This is like James Bond of plastic recycling.
Yeah, right.
You're like a plastic spy.
Yeah, I feel a little bit like it.
She drops the bags off at one of the city's new Bag It and Bring It collection sites. They accept any and all types of plastic. And according to the city's press release, it will be sorted, cleaned, and processed by Cyclics and taken by Exxon and others to be turned back into new products. So people in Houston dropping off their plastic might reasonably assume that it goes to a recycling center. But nearly every one of those bags with the Apple trackers in it ended up here at a place called Right Waste Management. They wouldn't let us on the property, but with a drone, we could see piles of plastic waste stacked more than 10 feet high, baking in the Houston heat. What did you think when you learned those plastic bags end up here?
I thought it was kind of strange because if you store plastic outside in the heat, it's a fire problem.
ICN and CBS News obtained documents showing Right Waste Management has failed 3 county fire safety inspections, and that while they're applying to store plastic waste, as of the date of filming, they still had not been approved. Do you think the average person in Houston dropping off the recycling thinks it ends up here?
No, I think that they've gotten the idea that it's being taken care of and being recycled.
But it's not.
That's right, not so far.
It's just sitting here in this lot.
Just sitting there, yep.
So how many of those Apple AirTags have you put in bags and how many ended up here?
We've dropped 12. 2 went to FCC Environmental, 1 stayed at the dump, and 9 came here.
And how much plastic like this have you collected so far?
So far, we've collected over 500,000 pounds of plastics just in the Houston market alone.
And so you guys aren't doing this yet, so what's happening to all that plastic in the meantime?
We need a huge supply of plastics to get ready for startup here, and we want to start that now in order to get ahead of it.
So it's interesting. I mean, you're saying you can do this, but to be honest, you haven't done it yet.
No, we have proven it to ourselves on the small scale and through quality verifications with our partner companies that we can do this at scale.
So with Exxon, of the plastic that's coming in here, how much will Exxon actually take?
So I'll let Exxon answer that question specifically, but they're looking to utilize these pellets in their process.
Look at the unit itself, look at the shiny metal. The shiny metal shows the new technology that we brought in with advanced recycling in December 2022.
Ray Mastrolio manages Exxon's advanced recycling efforts.
How much plastic can this unit process?
Yeah, so if you look at what we've done so far through our franchise, it's about 60 million pounds of plastic waste we've processed with our pilot unit and this unit. And that's a significant first step. We are just beginning the journey of learning how to run plastic waste, understanding the challenges it takes, and that's what helps us get to scale.
How many of these units do you think you'll eventually have around the world?
Currently, what we're planning on is around 12 projects at this point to get to that 1 billion pounds of plastic waste processing. But our hope is, as we prove that out, that's just the starting point.
Exxon says so far it has processed plastic waste mostly from industrial sources, not households, since the Cyclex facility is not yet operational. I asked Mastrolio about the waste that's been collected in Houston sitting at that storage site.
So this was announced a couple of years ago. Why has it taken so long to get this process going?
Yeah, well, so long to someone that's sitting on the peripheral, not actually doing the work, is probably a bit disingenuous in my mind, because there's been a lot of work to get us to where we're at. Number one, there's other warehouses that we're using today to pre-process feed, to bring into our site ahead of this mega investment that we've had, right, with Cyclex and the Cyclex Circularity Center.
I don't think it's disingenuous to say that it's delayed. I mean, you guys said it was going to be open almost a year ago, and now it's going to be next year, right?
Well, when I said disingenuous, for the people working so hard trying to get
Sure.
this thing up and running is what I meant by that.
Exxon gave CBS News the opportunity to witness a delivery of plastic waste and to see the operation in action. But once they had everything hooked up to unload the truck, our crew sensed that something didn't seem right.
You really do it then?
Yeah, it's going. You saw the whole one? Yeah, that's it.
Later that day, our producer received a call from an Exxon communications executive, confirming that the truck was in fact empty, which Exxon blames on a malfunction. They invited us back the following week to see it again. But critics say that even if Exxon is able to reach their recycling goals, it would still pale in comparison to how much plastic they produce.
And even looking bigger than Exxon, all of these chemical recycling ventures could process a very small percentage. We're talking 1%, 2%, 3% of plastic waste in the US, even if they were running at full capacity and operational, which they're not.
ExxonMobil says that at full capacity, they want to process 1 billion pounds of waste worldwide. But the company creates over 13 billion pounds of plastic waste every year and has plans to increase the production of plastics as soon as 2025.
Why are they now touting this suddenly as this is the holy grail solution?
Industry is very interested in continuing to expand plastic production, but they know they have a public relations problem because everybody knows there's too much plastic. There's just too much, and they need to convince people that we have this new magical advanced recycling, so don't worry about cutting down on your plastic production or use because we'll just recycle it all.
When we went back to Exxon's facility in Baytown, this time the truck was carrying processed plastic, and we watched it get reduced down to its fundamental elements, which can then be used to make more plastic or something else, fuel.
You know, after you put plastic waste through this process, what percentage of this is becoming new plastic products versus fuel?
That's a great question. So what we're doing in this is we're taking plastic waste, we're bringing it through our advanced recycling facility, creating raw materials that ultimately create new products. Fuels being one of them, plastics, lubricants, high-performing chemicals are also one of them.
But when you put up a sign that says, bring any plastic here and we're going to recycle it, do you think most consumers assume that means fuel? Or do you think most consumers think that means, oh, you're going to make new plastic bottles or products?
I can't speak to most consumers, but what I can say is our goal is plastic waste diversion. We're trying to keep plastic waste at a landfill.
Part of this is to offset the environmental issues by all this plastic waste. Correct. So if you turn plastic waste into fuel that is then burned and creates greenhouse gas emissions, that's just another environmental problem.
Yeah, but let's just go back to what you mentioned it. Plastic waste is the challenge. So if we have the ability to take plastic waste and convert it to new products, that's what we're trying to do.
In recent years, at least 25 states have passed laws allowing incentives for so-called advanced recycling initiatives, including classifying converting plastics back into fuels to be burned as recycling. In 2019, Shell Oil introduced an advanced recycling initiative in Louisiana, promising to turn 1 million tons of plastic waste into fuel by 2025. But in July of 2024, it backed away from that pledge, calling it unfeasible.
Do you think they really do believe this could work and want it to work?
I think it's possible, and anything's possible. But in terms of the amount of actual capital, time, resources that they're putting in, it's a drop in the bucket compared to Exxon's total profits. It's really quite small in terms of the total company spending on fossil fuels and petrochemicals.
The industry has talked about this for decades, and
Right.
they've actually never made good on these promises.
Right.
Do you think this is different?
I think it is. I think it's worth exploring, and if it doesn't make good on the promise, well, I don't think it's going to be that big of a loss off the city of Houston's back.
What would you say to Houston residents who might hear about this program now and say, this is not what I was told. This is not what I believe this was all about?
Right. So I would say continue to educate yourself, because I think from the inception of this program, I think it's been pretty clear. In fact, internally, we've had to correct ourselves from time to time because we're so used to saying recycle, 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 right? And we're saying we're going to prepare this material for recycling is what we've committed to. So continue to inform and educate yourself on this opportunity that we have, and let's see what kind of benefits result from it.
California's Attorney General is currently investigating Exxon over its decades-long claims that plastic is recyclable. He accuses the industry of a, quote, half-century campaign of deception to perpetuate myths around recycling. The AG is expected to soon announce whether he will sue Exxon.
Is this just your industry trying to make consumers believe that plastic is recyclable so they'll keep buying more plastic?
Advanced recycling is real. It's happening. We're doing it.
With all due respect, should we trust a company that makes money off of making and selling plastic to tell us that there is a solution to the plastic waste problem?
I mean, that's challenging the integrity of who we are, but this is just a starting point, and we are in it for the long haul.
So when a company like Exxon tells us that their plant works and that they're going to scale this up, is that greenwashing?
These ventures start up with these big announcements and these big plans, and it just doesn't work out. So I think it's wishful thinking at best and corporate malfeasance at worst.
We should be talking less about recycling and start talking about just not using single-use plastic. Is that your argument?
Absolutely, we should be focusing on the interventions that are going to be most impactful across that full plastic life cycle to reduce plastic pollution and waste. And so that means single-use plastics, yes, definitely, but also thinking about some of the types of plastic that are most problematic and unnecessary, that mess up recycling for materials we can recycle. Let's really think about how we can have systems that don't require us to use so much plastic. And those are the interventions that are going to reduce our generation of waste and really make a significant impact on plastic pollution.